Yesterday, Jimmy and I paid homage to the All-Star games for high school football as they seem to be going by the wayside. But Alabama did have some standouts.
You are Locked On Bama, your daily podcast on the Alabama Crimson Tide. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back into Locked On Bama, AHSA's radio network. Luke Robinson, that's me. Bama Online's Jimmy Stein, that's him. This episode is brought to you by GameTime. I'll tell you about GameTime in just a little bit. Thank you, everydayers, for being here every day. Thank you, newbies, for being here today. As you notice, I'm getting a little of a climp just talking about you, how wonderful you are. So, Jimmy, we talked yesterday about the All-Star games and how maybe a little bit of the shine is off of them because they're having to do things like reach. You know what it's almost like when these All-Star games start bringing in 2026 guys, it's like bringing in the cousin in Brady Bunch. It's like they've done all they can do with the normal cast, and now we got to start reaching out there and bring somebody else. For those who love my Simpsons references, it's when they brought Poochie into Itchy and Scratchy. So you know what I'm talking about. But so, Jimmy, I will say this, though. Some of the Alabama guys did get glowing remarks, not the least of which, obviously we can talk Keelan Russell, and maybe we should at the very beginning. He was the top signal caller at the Under Armour game, and I'd be willing to bet he's probably the top signal caller anywhere, as he did win Gatorade National Player of the Year. But the two guys that seemed to stand out, one for the Navy All-American game, one for the Under Armour game, respectively, would be Chuck McDonald of Mater Dei, who's coming into Alabama, and then Dijon Lee. So two defensive backs coming in really stood out to the experts at both of these events.
Chuck, first of all, Chuck, he reminds me of, particularly reading about him on All-Star Week, when a lot of experts and analysts were there to watch not just the game, but the practices. Chuck McDonald is a lot like signing Xavier Brown 2 years in a row. He feels like it's crazy because Xavier just got to Alabama, but Chuck McDonald feels like it's Xavier Brown all over again. He extremely similarly sized. When you watch the tape of high school, you would think you're looking at the same player. Obviously, they played at the same high school. And as we know, Xavier had tremendous success as a true freshman in Alabama. Chuck McDonald looks like just a real similar player. But the guy I really want to brag about is Dijon Lee. What a unique bird this dude is. One of the things I was interested in seeing, and kind of already knew this, but just to have it even more verified, Charles Power and Cody Belair from On3 were at the All-Star practices last week. And, they look at these high school kids, literally for a living and are very good at it. And I think Charles Power even used the word Dijon Lee is well over 6'3", and he played cornerback. And it's just insane that at that height you can play well against your peer group. And in his case, his peer group is, the top 100 prospects in America. And he sticks at corner. Now, what's he going to be at Alabama? Is he going to stick at cornerback? Maybe. Is he going to move to the Husky position, the hybrid position? I think that's very possible, very possible. He could certainly play safety because if you got cover skills to play corner and you're 6'4" and you're a physical player, safety seems like a good spot for you too. Now, one thing for people to listen that some might not consider, though, when it comes down to position choice, obviously I'm sure Dijon would like to help Alabama in any way he can, but these kids want to play cornerback and not safety. And why? Well, that's pretty simple. In the NFL, cornerbacks make a whopping amount of money and safeties make less. The best safeties in the league do not get paid anywhere near what the best corners in the league make. So cornerback, just a higher paying position, just like tackle is a higher paying position in the NFL than guard. Corners are paid more than safety. So these kids want to play cornerback, those that can. And that's an issue, in terms of what position he will play or will agree to play. And keep in mind, it's not like the old days. In the old days, you're like, you're going to play safety and you're going to like it. Now, when you're like, we want you to play safety. They say, okay, that sounds good. And then 5 minutes later, their name's in the transfer portal. So you can't, these days, position changes are not dictated if you want to keep a guy on your roster.
Yeah. And part of me is like, again, another bad sign of the times, because you have no power. But if you said, okay, first of all, if you said it's not really fair to make somebody who could be a corner and make more money move to safety, and then I thought, well, maybe there's an NFL problem. Maybe there shouldn't be such a discrepancy between cornerback and safety. But if you told everybody, okay, what if you did it more uniformly and said everybody on every NFL team makes the same amount of money, essentially? Well, then everybody would probably want to play safety, because the cornerbacks would be more prone to be cut because they'd be the ones getting burned more often. I mean, like it's a no-win type of thing. It's kind of a no-lose type of thing, I guess, if you want to look at it in the positive light. But it's just another sign how much things have changed and how much power the players have right now. And look, I'm in the camp of this isn't good long term. And I guess we will see who's right, because this is the way it is. Whether I think it's good or not is irrelevant. This is the way it is. But I do think it's also interesting. First of all, explain the Husky position for those who may not know the Husky position, Jimmy.
Sure. Alabama's Husky position is what Nick Saban called his star position. It's extremely similar, although it's a little different from scheme to scheme. The Husky position lines up, most NFL teams just refer to this spot as the nickel cornerback. It's a player that lines up in the slot, very similar to a slot receiver. So he sort of mirrors the offensive slot receiver. Nick Saban usually had a safety there that played his star spot, sometimes a corner. It appears that Womack is going to almost always want a safety, although Alabama had some injuries there. Ended up playing Dijon Jones at Husky quite a bit, who's more of a natural cornerback than a safety. But Womack probably wants a safety there because up front, he's a 3-3 guy, meaning there's 3 defensive linemen and 3 linebackers on the field, not a front 7, because it's only a front 6. You're going to want your 5th defensive back that's on the field to be a little more physical, because he's doing some things that a linebacker would normally do, but that you don't have a linebacker on the field, again, because Alabama's got a front 6 and not a front 7. So a Husky in Alabama's scheme is usually going to be a safety. Last year it was Devontae Smith, a safety, who was backed by Red Morgan, a safety. Keeg Mack played some there, a safety. Ends up, after injuries, Deshaun Jones ended up playing the spot, who's more of a natural corner. But we can call it a hybrid spot, though, because that player is doing some safety-type things. He's also doing some cornerback-type things. So that's why we call it a hybrid position, kind of part corner, part safety. But in Kane Womack's defense, it's usually going to be someone from the safety room.
Should I be at all concerned that, of course, Alabama's got some young players now? I mean, Damani Jackson will be moving on next year, but Alabama's got already a very nice young group in the secondary. Mm-hmm. And we're talking about McDonald and Dijon Lee coming in, and you can bet your bottom dollar they're going to want to play a lot to start out with. Should you be concerned at all about transfers? I mean, I guess the easy answer is, yeah, you should always be concerned about transfers anytime, forever. Amen.
Can't do anything about the fact that there's 85 players on the team and 22 starting spots. I mean, can't do anything about that. So if the other 66 that aren't starting are mad, then they're going to leave. I mean, all you can do, seriously, all you can do. Here's where I think fans make, some fans make a mistake. The ones that think, hey, you better play these guys or they're going to leave. No, the coach needs to win games or he's going to leave. The coach is mostly concerned about
involuntarily.
Exactly. The coach is mostly concerned about keeping his job, his high-paying job, and keeping his kids in private school and stuff like that. The coach is going to play the best players. And if you're not the best player, then fine, go somewhere else where you might be. I mean, that's just the reality of what today's situation is. You cannot dictate playing time based on, I better play him. He might leave in the portal. No.
And here is
play your best players, period.
And here's another case for having a general manager like Courtney Morgan. That's what they do in the NFL. I I mean, you have a general manager who, the coach has input, of course, and the coach input depends on how good the coach is and all those things. The power dynamics can be different. But, what we all have been worried about is, man, I don't want my coach worried about who's going to be on the team, who's going to transfer, worried about a game plan, worried about high school recruiting, worried about transfer portal recruiting. That's why you have to have a general manager these days to handle some of this and worry about, quote unquote, this imaginary salary cap, which is very real, but we just don't know what it is. It's not like the NFL where the salary cap is X. Everybody adheres to that. And that's what it is. No, Ohio State salary cap is going to be different than Wake Forest's salary cap. And say what you want to, it's not technically a cap, but it's a cap. So,
yeah,
right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. And I also say in the NFL, when you're a backup player in the NFL, those guys want to be starting too. If there was a transfer portal in the NFL, backup players in the NFL, they would leave and go somewhere where they think they can start, therefore make more money. Players in the NFL don't accept being backups any more than college players do. The difference is in the NFL, you might be a backup player, but your contract is for 4 years. You can't leave.
Yeah. You
got a 4-year deal where you're at. You can't go. In college, everything is a 1-year deal. So you can leave. The NFL would have just as much movement as college football if everyone up there had a 1-year deal.
Wouldn't it be?
They have multi-year contracts.
Here's the ideal thing, if you ask me, and again, podcast for another day. By the way, next time I say something incredibly poignant and smart, I need you to back me up more vehemently.
Point it out. Okay.
No, not point it out. Just I want a ferocious head nod. That's what I want from you.
I usually agree. I guess that's why I don't do that. I usually agree.
All right. So maybe eventually we're headed towards contracts and in college, I don't think you could do 4-year because you could do 4-year with a stipulation, if you want to leave early or whatever. But I think maybe you do 2-year contracts. And I think that's good for both parties. They make a certain amount of money, and if they feel they're being mistreated or they feel they could be better used somewhere else, they can leave after 2 years. But it also gives the coach time to see, are you going to develop? Then you renegotiate the contract. And you
feel that's where this is ultimately long-term headed is contracts. But the problem, the reason that's just not the solution is once these players have contracts, they are employees.
I agreed. But that's coming.
Right now, college football does not want them to be employees, and the players do not want to be employees because along with being employees comes some downside too, meaning you're fired. That happens the moment that you become an employee. And right now, players literally by rule are not subject to being fired.
Well, and on top of that comes unions, and on top of that could come strikes. And can you imagine players going on strike to ruin a college football season? It's one thing when they do it for the NFL, which I just abhor. I don't like it. I want my NFL. If they did it for college, it would be
a lot of
hell on earth, Jimmy.
There'd be a lot of empty stadiums that might stay empty for a good while.
All right, time to talk a little TurboTax. This is a message from our sponsor, Intuit TurboTax. Taxes, dealing with all that paperwork and frustrating forms. Who wants to do that? And then, you wait and you wonder and you worry, all the W's, if you're going to get any money back. Now taxes are easily uploaded to TurboTax Expert. That's so easy. Who's matched to your unique tax situation. An expert who's backed by the latest technology, which cross-checks millions of data points for 100% accuracy. While they work on your taxes, you get real-time updates. If you want them, if you're into that type of thing, they'll give them to you. And you can get the most money back guaranteed, all while you go about your regular old day of sitting on your tuchus. No stressing, no worrying, no waiting. Now this is taxes. That is how you want to do it. Intuit TurboTax. Get an expert now on TurboTax.com.
It is tax season.
Yeah. Look, I'll be honest with y'all. I've never done my own taxes. And if I ever had to, I would be under the jail. No, they'd probably be like, fine. I'd probably give all my money away being so scared I'd go to prison, but whatever. All right. So a new offer is out. And I'll tell you something, IMG, hey, Jimmy, I don't know about just, have you heard about this little school called IMG Academy down in Florida? They apparently have some dudes occasionally. And we have offered a defensive lineman named Preston Carey, one of their other 2026 defensive linemen. One was a top 10 performer at the either the Navy game or the All-American game or the Under Armour game. I can't remember. But so they got two dudes who are on the defensive line that are pretty doggone good that we know about. And here's some other news. They got 20 other dudes that start for them that are also very good.
Yeah, IMG has to be, when you're Alabama or any other SEC school, Power 4 school, IMG needs to be one of your first stops once the coaches hit the road. You better have a good relationship with IMG and know your way around that place because, I mean, it's just an annual production of not just prospects, but the best prospects. And Preston Carey is a guy that Alabama's got their on for sure. He's a defensive lineman. Joseph Hastings had a good write-up on him on BOL. Carey is from New York. That's the thing about IMG. You know, those kids are from all over. They're not just from Florida. Preston Carey is from New York, which is interesting. He is a defensive lineman. Alabama's had a lot of success in recent years signing offensive linemen out of IMG. This guy plays on the other side of the ball. Freddie Roach is talking to him. This looks like an elite. I don't know that he's going to end up being a 5-star, but this is a kid that will be in the 5-star type conversation. He's kind of a run-stuffing sized player who can move his feet extremely well. So he's kind of a run-stuffer / pass rusher. Those guys are hard to find at 300 pounds.
6'5", 300, by the way.
6'5", 300. So this dude's he's built for the next level. And he's going to get a ton of attention. He likes Alabama a lot. And
buddies with Michael Carroll, went against him at IMG.
Which is perfect because that's a kid that the kids at IMG understand the value of practicing against great talent. There's a huge value in that that's just not there for 90% of the kids that play high school football in the state of Alabama. They don't get to practice every day against other college-bound talent. And kids at IMG really understand that sales pitch you get from Alabama, which is, hey, our practice field makes you better. This kid's practice against Michael Carroll. So, hey, come to Alabama, you get to keep on practicing against not just Mike Carroll, but a bunch of guys just like him. So really interesting. Preston Carey, a name for Alabama fans to watch. A lot of new offers went out last week. Why? Because coaches hit the road. And when coaches hit the road, they find talent. They basically verify what they've been seeing on tape, you know, that they see on tape. A lot of times they just want to see them in person to verify their size. We talked about just earlier on this show about how Charles Power was at the All-Star game. It's like Dijon Lee is over 6'3". You know, stuff like that's important. These coaches get to see because what they're told, I mean, that's no different than what we tell the driver's license people. You know, when the driver's license people are like, how tall are you and how much do you weigh? And you give the driver's license people that information might not always be 100% accurate. That's why these coaches can't go by what your listed size is on Huddle.
Yeah, my first fake ID at Alabama said I was 5'6", 300, and I was more like 6'5", 190. So, but you know what? It still worked at the Tusk. It didn't work for Huddle, but it worked for the Tusk. Hey, I wanted to throw this out there. I was perusing here, and I saved this. A guy named Nose25 on the Bama Online board.
Yep.
He said, Cedarian Morgan question for Jimmy. He said, you mentioned on your podcast with Luke a few days ago that you felt Cedarian Morgan's college choice a coin toss between Bama and Auburn. But the On3 database says 90% chance of landing at Auburn. Let me take a chance here at trying to explain it. First of all, when it's 90% chance of landing at Auburn, I'll say this, that what that means to me is there are more Auburn guys who feel pretty good about his landing at Auburn. And part of that reason probably is Malcolm Simmons is already there, who's from Benjamin Russell, the kid's from Alex City, who is, you know, which is 40 minutes from Auburn, all those things. A lot of the people in his, you know, surrounding him, this is Auburn country. I'm in Alex City right now. This is Auburn country. Now, the other side, what I would counter with that is my understanding the kid comes from an Alabama family. I'm going to go out on a limb right now and say that doesn't mean as much anymore. So it means something, doesn't mean nothing, but it doesn't mean as much as it once did. I'll also say Alabama is prioritizing him. I know this for a fact. I am with Jimmy here. I believe it is more of a coin flip. If anything, if you made me predict today, I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm saying if you made me predict today, I would probably lean Alabama, honestly. That doesn't mean it's going to happen that way at all. I'm just saying that's my semi-educated guess. So I'm not saying he very well could go to Auburn. Very well. He could go to a lot of places.
I think when you hear 90% Auburn, first of all, there's an algorithm that comes up with those numbers. It's not just a random number. There's an algorithm that's based on some logic. But what I mean by it's more like a coin flip than 90% Auburn, because I think this could easily be Alabama, just like Luke says, because he's such a Alabama priority, as Luke has reported here, more like from an Alabama family. I think this could be Alabama. But I get why Auburn is the perceived heavy favorite, and that would just be geography, makes Auburn a heavy favorite. But I like Alabama. By coin flip, I don't necessarily mean I think this is 50-50, but I do think that Auburn is a natural favorite, but he may very well go to Alabama. Any Alabama fan,
it's like
giving up on Ced Morgan by any means.
Kamari Lassiter played for the Houston Texans the other day, Saturday, had an interception. I think he had a pick six. He played in Tuscaloosa in high school, and he ended up going to Georgia. And we were on a text chain. Somebody said, why in the world didn't we get Kamari Lassiter? And I'm pretty sure he left Georgia to come to Alabama, never really gave Alabama a sniff, and I'm not sure Alabama gave him a sniff. It was just one of those things. What I'm saying is, I think a lot of people thought, oh, he's going to high school in Tuscaloosa. Oh, he's going to Alabama. It doesn't really work that way.
Well, I also think he was in the same class as like Kool-Aid and a couple of other more guys that were even more highly rated that Alabama's like, hey, I think we're going to get these guys that we rate above him. So I think that's a factor. And I think this kid was just kind of always going to Georgia no matter what happened. But, I don't remember the specifics, but I do know that at no point did we feel like Kamari Lassiter was going to end up at Alabama. But he also was not as highly rated out of high school as the Kool-Aids. Believe it or not, despite Kamari's success at Georgia and in the NFL, he was not a 5-star top 50 national prospect at all.
How many Kool-Aids were there?
There was at least one Kool-Aid.
You said the Kool-Aids. Good Lord, can you imagine?
Kool-Aids.
Like, which Kool-Aid are you talking about? You'd have to start flavoring them.
The McKinstry one.
Time to talk a little game time. I might be using game time again here very shortly. I may be going to Lexington to see Bama play Kentucky. I'm looking forward to that. If I do, I'm going to use game time because it's the best. I'm going to find out where I'm going to be sitting. And I'm going to get the best price guaranteed. It's going to be easy. And if you have people like me who can't operate technology very well, then I may screw it up. Like I did one time with Game Time. Totally my fault. I reached out to their customer service. It was for the NFL game between the Dolphins and the Panthers. I'll never forget it because I was in a mild panic. And, but we got it all straightened out. They got it straightened out. I didn't get anything straightened out. They got it straightened out like in a heartbeat. And we realized it was user error. And that's just how Game Time is. They help you out. They want to make the experience better for you. If you use promo code Locked On College, you get $20 off that first order. I can't do any more than that for you, folks. So go use Locked On College for that first order with Game Time. What time is it? It's Game Time. Love talking a little hoops here in this third segment. This is, unless it's some kind of monster thing, this will always, third segment's going to be hoop segment. So it could be first segment like after a big game or in the NCAA tournament or whatever, but I want to reserve the third spot for hoops. And again, still euphoric after the big win against Texas A&M. I know Wade Taylor was out. You don't have to say that. That's all right. People are going to have injuries. We got Latrell Wright, like Jimmy pointed out very astutely the other day. But I guess if you wanted to nitpick, and y'all know how I am, I get in here and start nitpicking. The one thing I'd say is we did let a big lead slip late We missed 2 crucial free throws. Jared Stevenson did. Mark Sears had like an inexplicable brain gas of a turnover that just led to an easy dunk. They missed the layup, and we didn't get the rebound, and then they dunked it in. Those are the things we got to work on. But here's the positive to that. So far, everything we've not done well, that's been in a game that when we hadn't done something well, it seems like the coaching staff has addressed it and we fixed it. Case in point would be the Cliff Amore stuff that I talked about last week, where I had a conversation with Brian Passing. I'll just say who it was, doesn't matter. Passing was talking. He said, look, this is not a secret. This is something Nate Oates brought up. But not as many people listen to all of his press conferences or all of his quotes as they do the football coach. I know that. And basically he said, we just assumed Cliff Amore had it. We thought he had the rim, that area guarded. And then we get into the season, we realize, he might need to adjust to our style and who we play in the SEC and all that. So they started working on what they need him to do. And now it seems to be fixed because these last few games, Cliff Amore has played exactly the way we want him to. He's not averaging 20 points and 15 rebounds. I don't need him to. We got dudes for that. So I think that I have full faith in this staff for correcting issues. And then the other bright spot to me, it just keeps coming up. I feel like Aiden Holloway is getting better and better and better. And Lord knows if he gets good and if he were to go off against Auburn, it would be legendary.
Yeah, Holloway's a little different than I kind of expected him to be. I expected him to be more just a spot-up shooter, a guy off the bench who's sort of they used to call them zone busters. Maybe teams don't play as much zone as they used to, but Holloway affects the game in so many other ways besides the three-point shooting, though he's getting close. I think his percentage is creeping up near the 40% mark, which is outstanding for three-point shooting, and it's creeping close to there. But he affects the game in other ways. He attacks the basket a lot more often and better than I thought that he might, and he'll get after you on defense. He's obviously a premier athlete. He's making a positive contribution. Cliff Amore certainly is as the season has progressed. I think all we really need from Cliff is to be a presence, to be that rim protecting presence in the paint. And I think he's better and better at that all the time and is just finally getting a little comfortable. Big change in life. Obviously a kid that moved from Africa to New Jersey when he was 14 years old. He's used to change. But it does take a normal person a while to adjust to the new surroundings, the new teammate, the radically new system that Alabama has versus what he played in at Rutgers. I think Cliff's coming around, and I think Alabama is on track to be every bit as good as we felt they might be in the preseason.
A couple of things. First of all, you talk about Cliff Amore. There was a play, and I can't remember who threw it, but it was an alley-oop that was too high for him. And I was having to listen to it on the radio, and my first thought was, how?
Yeah,
like
off the roof.
Like he changes light bulbs in Coleman. How do you overthrow Cliff Amore? Then secondly, CBS Sports, they do their own top 25, and then they do the projected top 25. Okay, so they do their own top 25. They have still us at number 5 with Florida passing us, even though Mississippi State was ahead of us last week. And they lost at home to Kentucky, so they bumped them way down. They bumped Tennessee way down. We don't move. We go beat Texas A&M on the road. We go beat South Carolina on the road, a team that hung with Auburn, by the way, even before Broome was hurt. And, I'm like, what do we got to do to get love from these guys? Well, on the projected top 25, they have us at 4, which I can certainly – get down with. That's probably about right. We have 2 losses, so I understand. But just check out the top 25 and listen to the teams we play. Some of them we play twice. And this also, by the way, if there are any Auburn listeners out there, I'm going to give kudos to Bruce Pearl for stepping up his schedule. I said it last year that was one of Auburn's biggest problems. Their schedule stunk. And everybody said, well, we played USC and Indiana. Y'all know USC and Indiana hadn't been good in forever. Quit talking about that. Bruce Pearl noticed it too, and he got the job done, and his schedule was awesome this year too. So my props to him. But this is the projected top 25 from CBS, and I think it's usually quite on par. 1 is Auburn. I can't disagree even with Broome's injury. By the way, some people think he'll be back in a couple of weeks. Number 2 is Iowa State, who we didn't play, but Auburn did. Number 3, same with Duke, who we didn't play, but Auburn did. Number 4 is us. We play Auburn twice. Number 5 is Florida. We both play Florida. Number 6 is Tennessee. We both play Tennessee. 7 is Marquette. 8 is Kentucky. We both play Kentucky. We play them twice. 9, Kansas. 10, Houston. We both played them. 11, A&M. We both played them. 12, UConn. 13, Oregon. We played them. 14, Michigan State. 15, Gonzaga. 16, Mississippi State. Did we play them twice or just once? I think we played them.
I think we played them twice. I know we played them there because that's coming up.
Yeah. I think we played them twice. Auburn plays them Tuesday. Number 17, Illinois, we played them. Number 18, Purdue, we both played them. Number 19, Memphis, Auburn played them. 20, Michigan, 21, Ole Miss, we both play them. 22, Utah State, 23, Wisconsin, 24, Arizona, 25, Georgia, we both play them. And the ones who dropped out was Oklahoma, who, Oklahoma was undefeated. They roll in T-Town, we bury them, and now they're 0-3 in the league. By the way, Arkansas also 0-3 in the league. What I hate about that, Jimmy, I knew Arkansas was going to have a valley. I was hoping their valley would be when we're going to play them up there. They're going to come around. They got too much talent.
Oklahoma and Arkansas being 0-3 is all the evidence you need about how ridiculously good the SEC is, because those are not bad teams at all. I mean, are they great teams? Are they Final Four teams? Of course not. But they're good. They're good teams. They wouldn't be 0-3 in any other league.
I totally agree. Couldn't agree more. It's just going to be a wild ride. And look, Bama's got a big game tomorrow night. We'll talk about it tomorrow in the third segment, getting ready for Ole Miss tomorrow, because Ole Miss they're 3-0 in the league.
3-0.
It's a 1-1 matchup in the league tomorrow night.
Alabama, Auburn, and Ole Miss are the only 3-0 teams, and Ole Miss rolls into Tuscaloosa Tuesday night.
Yep. So everybody get ready for it. All right. That's going to do it for today's pod. We'll be back tomorrow with more. Until then, roll tide, everybody.
Roll tide.